A president who built his image on strength just admitted it on national TV. Russia is in crisis. This isn't just a mild slowdown or a temporary hiccup. Russia is in deep trouble. It's a full-blown disaster that's hitting every part of the economy. For over 20 years, Vladimir Putin has shown himself as powerful, in control, untouchable. But now, the truth is out. That image of resilience has crumbled, revealing a country drowning in inflation, drained by war, and staring down a possible collapse of its banking system. Sure, the Kremlin's propaganda machine is still trying to paint a picture of growth and recovery, but inside Russia, ordinary people are watching their rubles lose value, their businesses shut down, and their savings disappear. This episode reveals a harsh truth. Russia's economy isn't just in decline, it's falling apart from the inside, and the crash is worse than anyone expected. Even though headlines brag about a 4.1% economic growth rate in 2024, the reality is much bleaker. That growth number is just smoke and mirrors, almost entirely propped up by war spending. Every ruble fueling this supposed recovery is coming from defense budgets, tanks, ammo, recruitment bonuses. In fact, military spending shot up by an insane 75% in just 1 year. Now, nearly 40% of the federal budget is being poured into the military-industrial complex. This isn't sustainable development, it's economic cannibalism. While Moscow boasts about GDP figures, the real picture on the ground is the opposite. Retail sales are down. Construction projects have stalled because mortgage rates are sky high. Factories are running at half capacity. Russia isn't building a future. It's trading its present just to keep fighting a war that's bleeding its economy dry. And regular people are the ones paying for it. Inflation is eating into everyone's purchasing power. Basic things like food have seen double-digit price hikes. Bread, for example, jumped from 50 to 70 rubles. For families earning about 71,000 rubles a month, roughly $900, that means having to choose between eating and heating or between medicine and survival. This isn't just a cost of living crisis, it's a crisis of survival. To make things worse, the government's response has only added more pressure. Interest rates have shot past 20%, among the highest in the world. Starting a business, buying a house, expanding a company, it's almost impossible. Loans are just too expensive. Small businesses can't even afford to stay afloat, let alone grow. The housing market is frozen. Construction firms are laying off workers in large numbers. And for retirees who remember the Soviet collapse, this is déjà vu. Fixed incomes are being eroded month by month, losing about 1% of their value each year, and the pace is picking up. But the collapse isn't just about inflation or interest rates. There's an even scarier threat coming, a nationwide labor crisis. Russia is facing a severe worker shortage, about 2.5 million people short. Whole industries are grinding to a halt because they simply don't have the manpower. Why? Hundreds of thousands of men have been drafted into the war, and many of them won't ever return. Even worse, over 700,000 people fled the country in 2022 alone. And they weren't just average workers. They were the future. Engineers, teachers, doctors, IT professionals. The very people who could have helped modernize Russia, left in search of freedom and opportunity in countries like Armenia, Georgia, and Estonia. The tech sector alone lost over 100,000 specialists, shrinking by 20%. With fewer workers, wages rise, which drives inflation even higher. It's a vicious cycle. Employers can't afford to hire, so they either hike prices or shut down. Construction is running at less than half capacity. Hospitals don't have enough staff. Schools can't find qualified teachers. Russia isn't just losing talent, it's bleeding out its own future. And now comes the biggest domino, the banking sector. Behind the scenes, Russian officials are quietly raising alarms. A full-scale banking meltdown could hit within the next 12 months. And this isn't just speculation, it's coming straight from the institutions meant to keep the economy stable. Imagine the 2008 global financial crisis, but inside a country already cut off from global capital, buried under sanctions, and stuck in a brutal war. The warning signs are everywhere. 12 of Russia's top 70 companies can't pay their debts anymore. That's nearly 1 in 6 companies heading for default. Credit card delinquencies are up 65% in just 4 months. 11% of all credit cards in Russia are now in default. So what's the government doing? Not fixing the problem, but clamping down. They've set a daily withdrawal limit of $500. Russians have to wait 48 hours just to access their own savings. This isn't fraud protection. These are emergency measures designed to stop a bank run before it starts. Worse still, banks have been forced to lend over $200 billion to military contractors, many of whom will never pay it back. This isn't a real economy. It's a pyramid scheme waiting to collapse. At the core of Russia's economic crisis is one major weakness: fossil fuels. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia has relied heavily on oil and gas exports. When prices were high, it looked like a strength. But now, that foundation is cracking. Oil still makes up nearly 38% of Russia's GDP and more than a third of its federal budget. But the country's main crude oil, Urals, has dropped to about $54 a barrel, far below the $67 needed just to break even. That's crushed profits. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, Rosneft's net income fell by 59%. Oil production has now hit a 9-year low. Sanctions are hitting hard. Europe has slashed its reliance on Russian gas from 44% to just 14%. Countries that used to depend on Russian energy are building liquefied natural gas terminals, switching to renewables, and moving on. Russia is now selling its products to China and India, but at huge discounts. These countries know Russia is desperate, and they're taking advantage. Russian oil is selling for about $18 below the market rate just to attract buyers. And as the world speeds toward clean energy, oil, Russia's golden goose, is quickly becoming outdated. But there's a darker irony here. The very war that's wrecking Russia's economy is also, in a strange way, keeping parts of it alive. Military production now provides about 1.2 million jobs. That's roughly 1 in every 10 workers. Entire cities like Tula have basically turned into weapons factories. Just last year, Russia earned $14 billion from arms sales to countries like Iran and North Korea. But honestly, this isn't real economic growth. It's more like a temporary painkiller. It keeps things going for now, but, well, it makes the disease worse over time. Nearly 39% of the federal budget now goes to defense and internal security. That means there's less money for schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and research. The government is offering signing bonuses of 2.8 million rubles, about $35,000, to attract new recruits. For struggling families, that's more than they'd earn in years of hard work. But this just fuels the cycle. The war economy isn't just unsustainable, it's self-destructive. It's like burning the walls of your house to keep warm. Sooner or later, there's nothing left to burn. The human cost of all this is staggering. More than 21 million Russians, roughly 1 in 7 people, now live below the poverty line. In towns where factories have shut down, families are scrambling to earn anything. Meat and vegetables have become luxuries. People are turning to processed food just to feel full. Parents are skipping meals so their kids can eat. Elderly Russians are being forced to choose between buying food or medicine. Rural clinics have shut down. Urban hospitals are overcrowded and underfunded, with patients waiting months for treatment. Education is also in crisis. Teachers are earning around $480 a month. The profession is collapsing, with qualified educators either leaving the country or moving to private schools. Over 12% of teaching positions are currently vacant. This isn't just a short-term downturn. It's the slow unraveling of a nation's future. And the collapse isn't just confined to Russia. As a major exporter of wheat, metals, and energy, what happens in Russia affects the world. Wheat production is down 8%, which is already pushing up food prices across Africa and the Middle East, driving hunger and political unrest. Russia is also a key supplier of nickel, aluminum, and palladium, essential materials for everything from smartphones to electric cars. As output falls and exports shrink, global manufacturers are facing rising costs. Supply chains from Japan to Mexico are feeling the strain. Even though Europe has reduced its dependence on Russian energy, markets are still volatile. A single disruption in Russia's remaining export capacity could trigger a spike in prices from Asia to South America. When Russia shakes, the world feels it. And all signs are pointing to a tipping point. Oil revenues are down 37%. Tax collections are falling. Russia's National Welfare Fund, the last financial safety net, is expected to run dry by early 2026. When that happens, Russia will face a brutal choice: cut military spending and risk losing the war, or keep spending and plunge the entire economy into collapse. Either path leads to disaster, and the political fallout could be massive. Russia is still a nuclear-armed nation with 145 million people. And when you mix economic despair with authoritarian rule, you get a volatile, unpredictable situation. This isn't just a Russian problem, it's a global